Alright, here we go again. We're going to be going over some of the controls in Dark Souls 3 that aren't really indicated in the tutorial. The tutorial isn't very cohesive. You kind of have to find bits of it yourself, the way it's presented. Most of this video is going to be talking about how to deal with the boss of the first zone, because if you're watching this video, chances are you've been gifted a game or someone bought it for you and they're like, okay, you just need to get through the first area, no big problem, right? Then I'll be able to carry you from there. But you get through the first area and you're like, okay, that was difficult, and then you get to the boss and say this game is impossible, and then you uninstall the game, and then that person feels like they wasted their money. So this video is going to try to prevent that, because the tutorial is not very friendly. So we're going to talk a bit. This is from a keyboard and mouse standpoint, but I'm going to try to use the controller controls as much as I can. So of course, your right and left bumpers, I guess you call them, respectively control your right hand and left hand. Main hand uses right hand, obviously. R1 will be like your regular attack with your main hand weapon, my hand axe, as you can see on the right. R2 will use a strong attack, which you can charge or just just tap it for a slightly stronger attack. Charging it is good in situations where you can deal a lot of damage to enemies, and it also has uses in PvP with delaying your attacks and catching people off guard. Using your L1 will allow you to block with a shield, block with other weapons that aren't intended to, are too heavy for you to use to attack with your left hand. Some weapons, like maybe, I don't know, I haven't done a lot of dual wielding, but I know with like fist weapons you can punch with your right hand. But if you try to L2, you'll perform what's called a weapon art. In this case, with the shield, it's a parry. You can determine what weapon arts weapons have by going to the equipment page here and hovering over them. Let's actually look at some weapons. We'll talk about equipment. So you have the axe. It deals standard damage. This is the weapon art for the axe. It's Warcry. Select the shield. Its weapon art is parry. You can see here the attack power, along with what types of damage types it deals. This one is just a shield, doesn't deal any magic or anything. This is how well it guards against various types of damage. Its damage reduction and its stability we'll talk about later. And other stuff like what stats you need in order to wield it, how well it scales with stats. So this is its base stats, and this is its stats amplified by your own respective stats. So if it has an attribute bonus and you have a very high strength, you'll get more out of it, more damage out of it. But you shouldn't be hitting people with the shield anyway. Anyway, I just unequipped my axe. So you can see the axe's damage is better than the shield, obviously. But I want to use Warcry, which is the weapon art for the axe. How do I do that? Well, we will have to two-hand it. I don't know what the button is for link control, but you can find it yourself. Tap it, and you can now deal with the axe. This allows you to deal more damage, because dual wielding, what it does is it multiplies your strength stat by 50%. So if you have a weapon that scales well with strength, you'll do substantially more damage generally. And usually that means you have a different move set while two-handing. Here, the strong attack is... Attacks are a little shorter, they're not as long reach. Maybe not. With other weapons it is, I don't use hand axes too much. But when I'm two-handing, I can use the weapon art just by using L2. And that's Warcry, increases my damage, all kinds of good stuff. Now what about spells? Well, for this class, I have a Pyromancer flame I start with. This is a catalyst for Pyromancers that you can use to cast spells. Because it's equipped in the left hand, use L1 and you can launch fireballs at people. Whoop-de-doo. Kills them pretty good. But let's talk about parrying real quick, see if I can do it right. That's a parry. If you time the block with your shield for when an enemy connects with you, you can parry the attack. That usually means you need to anticipate the attack and block just before the hit lands. But because we just picked up an item, let's go over spells again. Spells consume mana, which you can find up here. This is your focus points bar. This, by the way, this is health. That's pretty self-explanatory what happens when that hits 0. Focus meter is basically your mana. This is consumed by spells. It's also consumed by weapon arts, such as Warcry. However, parrying does not require focus points. You can actually see how many focus points it requires here. Focus cost of parry is null, as opposed to combustion and Warcry. I know I'm missing something. Oh, you can also two-hand a shield if you want by holding whatever key you need to two-hand a weapon, but it's kind of useless. I guess you can whack people with a shield. You can also block with the shield when you block with the shield. I'll demonstrate real quick with this enemy. You can you take less damage. Watch my stamina bar, which is the green bar underneath my focus meter. It gets lowered a bit. So take stamina to block attacks. If your stamina is depleted when you block an attack, you will be staggered and enemies can crit on you. You deplete stamina by rolling a lot. See, now I can't roll anymore. It just charges very slowly. It also depletes stamina by sprinting. Blocking will lower the amount of stamina you regain. Also, so in order to recover your mana points, you use the orange Estus Flask refills your HP, but this one here, the Ashen Estus Flask, refills your mana. So I can use that and top my mana off back to full. If you want to get all your pots back, I depleted all mine, I'm going to get into a fight. What do? Interact with the bonfire. I'm going to light this one here. So it's added to my list of bonfires, which is only one at the moment. You invest in this one, you'll get an emote, la-di-da. That's not important for what we're talking about, so I'm not going to go over emotes. Now all my Estus are refilled. Now, when you're going through an area and you've killed all the enemies once, you generally don't need to clear them all again. You generally just want to get to the boss. I'm going to demonstrate some things with these enemies before we get to the boss chamber, which is just over there. So what I just did on that enemy was a backstab. Pretty self-explanatory. I get behind an enemy and then I press R1. Easy enough on most enemies. After they perform the animation, get behind them. It's not as strong a crit as a riposte after parry. I messed that up. Come on, hit me. This one does substantially more damage. 228 as opposed to 160 or whatever the other one was. I wasn't paying attention. So yeah, just gonna top off my... As you can see, when I use the bonfire, enemies reappear. So you can't clear the entire and then just run to the boss. This is why we have to figure out good routes to get to the boss. Generally, you can get to the boss without taking damage. I thought I could run past him there. I was a moron. That's a plunge and attack, what I just did. If you're falling, or you make a small jump, you can plunge attack it. Adds a substantial damage modifier to your attack. Just take a little bit of damage while you're falling. So we're about to approach the boss. Did I go over everything? No, there's a couple of moves I didn't talk about yet. So when you're rolling, if you R1 right after a roll, that's basically what we call a rolling attack. If you R2, you can do a strong attack after, which is slightly different from your normal strong attack. And you can also charge that one. By slightly different, it's almost the same for this weapon, but for other weapons it is quite different. Like some spears, you'll swing them across as opposed to poking with them. You can also do running attacks with R1, but if you R2, I believe, while you're running, you do a jumping attack. Both have good uses. And in PvP, it's easier to parry certain ones, so you gotta be cautious of which you use. Try to be unpredictable. So for this boss, the Nightmare boss, drives everybody insane. At the very first time you fight him, you have to pull a sword out of him, and this gives you a moment where you can just hit him. When you if you die, which you probably will, and return here, you won't have the opportunity to hit him while he's standing up because he'll be standing up while you're over at the door. So you have to spend time reaching him, and by that time you won't have an opportunity to hit him. So we're gonna do a couple things. I'm gonna demonstrate how you can dodge through his attacks and how rolling gives you invincibility frames. So I can roll through his weapon. It's actually colliding with my model, but I'm not taking damage. I can demonstrate how you don't even need to roll in order to dodge his attacks. You can just run around it or run past him. Also how you can parry him, though I wouldn't expect someone to clear Gundyr on their first try with parries. And then the second phase, which is, well, we'll see what happens. So I can hit him a couple times. You can also stagger bosses. If he will continue hitting, or he won't get staggered if I hit him once, like some of those hollows I was fighting did. See, look, I'm hitting him, but he's not getting staggered. If you hit him a couple times, he may stagger, though. So I'm gonna see if I can demonstrate how I can roll through his spear. See, look, that actually went through me. His shoulder, however, did not. But here, I can just go out of reach of his weapon attacks and dodge his shoulder lunge by moving to the side. That was a failure, but continue demonstrating. So moving to the side gives you better chances to hit a boss because you're not rolling, which takes up an animation that you have to wait for before you can hit a boss. So generally moving to the side of a boss or getting behind them is a better way of giving you opportunities to hit. Because with bosses, you generally want to create opportunities to hit. Now, bosses' movesets is dependent on the distance you are from the boss. So if you're far away, let's see if I can prompt him to do a distant attack. You'll jump in the air and try to do a distant attack. With most bosses, you want to get within arm's reach because it's easier to get behind them and messes up their targeting. This boss, however, it's good to stay within about the middle ground because he won't try to grab you. I'll demonstrate how to parry. Almost all of this boss's attacks can be parried. I can follow up with the toss that does major damage. I'll demonstrate a couple of parries without hitting him. So as I see, I start the parry just before his attack lands. You can also wait for the end of a combo, where it's easier to time the parry, because his first couple of hits from the combo, a little harder to see the windup. Now let's keep moving with him. Is he gonna phase yet? No, not yet. Oops. Alright. We could build Liberty here. Phase him now. Now this is the point where people realize I need to uninstall this game because there's no way I'm beating this. And they get spanked. What you gotta do is just watch for the attacks. The beast likes to do large sweeping motions, so if you see it moving, you're ready to move. And it generally has a big windup, so keep an eye on Gundyr's weapon as well as the beast itself. One of the best ways to avoid damage with this boss is to stay at a distance, because the long attacks like that, they have less follow-up. You can also stay in close and just get behind him. It works pretty well. You may die here. Just dodge and roll to the side and you'll be fine. No biggie. I've done this boss many times without taking damage. And you can too. It just takes a little bit of practice. Understanding his moveset, and you'll be fine. Know what you can do, know your limits. You can also block to save yourself from damage if you're worried about rolling, but if you run the risk of taking a lot of damage if you do that with low stamina. It's better to get acquainted with rolling anyway because you can't block everything in this game, and there'll be way too many attacks coming at you, multiple enemies, so it's good to learn how to roll, so do it here. And that's about it. I probably missed a couple of things, but you know, that's Dark Souls. There's a lot to it. Alright. Good work, Skeleton. Once you get to this point, you can have your buddy carry you, or you can also try to get better at the game yourself. Up to you now. It's a fun game, so have some fun.